Alright, what is going on, guys? I am TJ, bringing you guys a brand new video on my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the 2019 draft class, and specifically the quarterback position. Now, the 2019 draft class in terms of the quarterback group is a very talented class. There's a lot of guys in this class, a lot of guys that could go in the first round, but it's not as good of a class as last year's was. You had guys like Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Mason Rudolph, and the number 1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield. You had 2 Heisman winners in that class, respectively, in Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. Now, I'm not, discrediting the 2019 class. I do like it a lot. There are some really good prospects that I like that we're going to go over today, but I don't think it has the same amount of talent as the 2019, or not 2019, but 2018 class. Now, if you followed my channel last year, you know that I did the top 5 quarterbacks, or the top 5 positions in college football for like quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and other positions and stuff like that. But this year, I looked back and I thought maybe 5 positions. I went too in depth, and they were like half-hour videos, and I know that people don't have a ton of time to watch half-hour videos or anything like that. So this year, we're just going to stick with my top 3. 5's a good number. I figured if I was going to cut it down, 4 would be weird, so I'm just going to cut it down to 3, the top 3 guys. And so I'm going to be doing that for the rest of these series. Like, I'm going to go over as many positions as I can. Probably not offensive linemen because that's really boring to watch, so I'm probably just going to stick to the skill position players like D-backs, wide receivers, linebackers, all that type of stuff. So with that being said, let's jump right into the rankings. Starting off at the number 3 spot, I have Drew Locke, a senior from Mizzou. Now, this is a guy that I've kind of got ties with. I don't necessarily know him personally or anything like that, but we kind of grew up in the same city. My town is Independence and his town is Lee Summit. Lived like 15 minutes away from me. We played 7-on-7 at the same school. Like, we would travel to Lee Summit to go play 7-on-7. And this dude, like, everybody knew he was getting recruited by Mizzou, and he had D1 offers all over the place and stuff like that. And in 7-on-7, like, you don't wear helmets. You usually wear just like, shorts, t-shirts, gloves, like whatever, stuff like that, but you don't wear pads or anything. And this dude was the only dude on any of the fields that had a helmet with a GoPro attached to it, filming his practice in his 7-on-7, and then Mizzou turned it into like a highlight reel. It was like crazy stuff. And then we eventually played him my sophomore year of high school, and it was a pretty close game for like 2 minutes, and then they ended up blowing us out like 80-40. It was absolutely embarrassing. But he's a guy that I root for, growing up in the same-ish hometown, and he goes to Mizzou. I follow Mizzou football. I've been a fan of them for like as long as I can remember. And even though I go to, Mo State, I do pay attention to Mo State football. I don't think I'm just, I don't care or anything like that. It's just exciting to see him now as a pro-caliber quarterback, pro-level quarterback, at least in college, that is going to transition well to the pros, in my opinion. He's a dude that had Matty Mock. If you don't know about Matty Mock, he was like dealing cocaine at Mizzou, and then Drew Locke came in like halfway through his freshman season and played terrible. He had like 4 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. His next year as a sophomore, he stepped it up. He had like 21 or 22 touchdowns. And then last year, he absolutely went off. He could have gone out last year, but I felt like he felt that the class was too stacked and that he wouldn't have been taken until the 5th or 6th round, so he'd wait another year and then be a top prospect in the next year's draft. But last year, he went absolutely off. He had like 3,800 yards and like 43 touchdowns. Just absolutely insane. He took Mizzou football to a next level that we hadn't seen since like Chase Daniel, and he was just an absolute like culture changer down there at Mizzou. All right, enough talking about personal connections and anything like that and stories. We're just gonna jump right into talking about his strengths and weaknesses. Starting off with his strengths, he's got great arm talent. He's probably got top 3 arm talent in the country. The dude can fling it wherever he wants to. He can zip the ball into any hole. He can throw the ball down the field. He can stretch the field with his arm, throw his receivers open on streaks and stuff like that. He's really good at that. And then for another strength that I have, he's a gunslinger. So he's going to try and get the ball out, get the ball to his receivers, even if he's under pressure, if he's rolling out of the pocket, if he's throwing off of 1 foot, if he's throwing off his back leg, if he's got a dude wrapped around him, he's trying to get his playmakers the ball so that they can go score. That's kind of a pro and a con, because being a gunslinger can lead you into throwing interceptions and stuff like that, but I haven't necessarily seen his gunslinger mentality kind of lead him into mistakes or anything like that so far. He's really good at changing his arm angles to fit balls into windows or around defenders and stuff like that. It's kind of a nuanced thing that's become in the NFL. I'd say probably around like the 90s and like late 2000s. Dudes, I remember Tom Brady used to do it all the time on like outs or like quick pigtail type routes. He would just snap the ball and then just sidearm the football, and it's something that's really just kind of grown in the NFL and in college football, and Drew Locke's really good at that. On quick outs, he kind of just changes his arm angle and flicks it out there, or if he's running away, he's not going to have his normal throwing motion. He's going to just fling the ball like sideways or whatever. He's really good at changing his arm angle to fit the balls wherever he needs to, or get the balls on the right path to get to the receiver. He also has really good ball placement for the most part. There was just a couple games that I've been watching on film and stuff like that, and if you know, if the DB is on top of the wide receiver, sorry, it was so hard for me to get that out for a second. But if the DB is on top of the wide receiver, he usually throws back shoulder, and if, you know, he misses it sometimes, but nobody can make every throw like look perfect or anything like that. He usually throws his receivers open on deep routes and stuff like that. He's really good at fitting the ball between cover 2 on the sidelines, like fitting it in between linebackers and cover 3s and over the middle of the field and stuff like that. He's really good at that, and he has good mobility for the most part. He's not a scrambling quarterback by any means, but he's got enough mobility to get out of the pocket and create his own plays with his feet or with his arm. It's kind of, I'm not going to say that he's Patty Mahomes, but he has Patty Mahomes-esque type escapability. I'm going to call it mobility just because he's able to move around in the pocket and it makes him a more versatile player, but it's not necessarily I'm going to take off here or there or anything like that. His mobility helps him create plays and open up his receivers down the field and stuff like that. And he has great deep ball ability. All of his film last year was absolutely great. He's throwing the ball over top to Albert O. I'm not even going to try to attempt his last name. He's throwing it over top to Johnny Johnson, to Emmanuel Hall, to Jamon Moore, however you pronounce his name. But he was just launching balls all over the field last year, and it really helped that Mizzou offense. That's something that's becoming more and more of a thing in the NFL. It's just taking those deep shots. Even if your receiver's covered, you may end up, you know, drawing a flag out of the defender. You may end up, you know, getting roughing the passer, depending on, like, you know, what the rules are in the next few years or whatever like that. He's just going to benefit from being able to throw the ball so far down the field like he does. He also gives his receivers catchable balls consistently. They were like top 5 in Power 5 conferences last year in drops, but most of the drops were his receivers not recognizing that Drew was going to get the ball out so quickly, or them just straight up dropping the ball. So he's putting the balls on the money. His receivers are just dropping them from time to time, but I feel like that's just more of a chemistry thing. In the NFL, that won't be a problem. Your dudes are going to be catching all the balls because that's what they're going to get paid to do. Now, just talking about some of his weaknesses that I noticed, or some of his inconsistencies in his game. He doesn't make the best decisions. That's not saying that all the time he's just making bad throws, but sometimes when he's under duress, he'll just throw the ball up into a contested area, which isn't the best decision. And sometimes they're just things that I think that in the heat of the game, it's hard to make a decision in a split second, but I feel like that's something that you have to train yourself to do. And in the NFL offseason camp and stuff like that, in mini camps, I feel like he'll get more acclimated to that. But at this point, I just don't think that he has the best decision making, whether that's taking a sack when you need to take a sack, or throwing the ball away when you need to throw it away, just stuff like that, or just throwing it into the wrong area of the field instead of taking a check down, stuff like that. He gets kind of frantic under pressure, whether that's with his footwork or with his ball security or with his throwing. It just seems like pressure bothers him a lot more than some other people. He just gets really hoppy and really erratic in the pocket and stuff like that. He just doesn't look comfortable. Obviously, you're not going to be comfortable when you're blitzed, but to me, it just looks like he's totally out of his zone and he's not really focused or anything like that. He's more focused on the people in front of him than he is about making a play, which is, an okay thing to be focused on, is like the people that are trying to kill you. But to me, it's just like his mechanics break down a lot when he's under pressure, and I feel like that's something that he's got to work on. Kind of going back to that point that I just made about him being erratic under pressure, his footwork is pretty inconsistent. I wouldn't say that it's good, but it's not good. That probably doesn't make any sense, but he doesn't have the best footwork. He just kind of stands and he doesn't really move his feet as well as I think he should be doing, whether that's turning to find a receiver on his left side and then back to his right. He kind of just stands there and moves his upper body, and his feet really aren't involved in his throwing motion or in anything like that. He kind of relies a lot on his upper body and his arm. And another weakness that I've seen throughout watching some of the games are that he tends to fade on throws instead of stepping into them. This is very, very prominent in a thing that was brought a lot of light to when he was playing Georgia this year. He just really was running away from pressure and then just trying to throw off of his back foot, or just rolling out of the pocket and then fading into it instead of stepping into a throw. Or even if like the pocket was collapsing but there wasn't immediate pressure on him, he was just like throwing it off of his back foot and opening up his chest instead of like tucking the shoulder and staying straight so he could throw the ball in a straight line. And he does it a lot just on normal plays too, where he's not really feeling any pressure. He'll just, if he's trying to loft the ball like to a receiver down the sideline, or he's trying to loft it to lead a receiver open in the middle of the field, he'll just like turn and like throw away, and sometimes that makes it more or less accurate. It's kind of a toss-up right there, but I just feel like if he was stepping into throws more, down the field throws would be easier and they'd look a lot better, but that's just another thing that I think he needs to improve on. And the last weakness that I have is that he waits a little bit too long for routes to develop. Occasionally, sometimes he just doesn't take the check down. A lot of times he's just standing in the pocket waiting for a route to develop that he knows is going to be open, but he waits too long for it and the pocket ends up collapsing drops and he either gets sacked or it's a fumble, or he has to end up scrambling and throwing the ball away instead of taking the check down. So something that I think he needs to work on more is just taking the check down instead of always looking for the big play. Sorry about my ESPN notification going off right there, but let's jump right into the number 2 quarterback. All right, moving on to my number 2 quarterback in this class, I have Justin Herbert, the junior from Oregon. He's a pretty big dude, about 6'6", 6'5", 230 pounds. He was a kid that wasn't highly recruited or looked at out of high school. He had a couple offers from some smaller D1 schools, and then he went to a camp at Oregon, attended it. The coaches thought he was good enough to, go to school there, play football there, so they offered him a scholarship, and the rest is history. He's battled injuries throughout his career. I think he's played a full season like once, or I think, but he was injured last year, and when he's out, they suck. Oregon is terrible, but when he plays, they're really, really good, and to me, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and that's why I have him at number 2. Just talking about his strengths really quick, he's got a rocket right arm and a super quick release, something we saw out of Baker Mayfield last year, a guy who just got the ball out really quick, hit his receivers when they were open, didn't wait, knew we could get the ball there because of how strong his right arm was. And another good thing about Justin Herbert, he's got very good ball placement. He knows not to lead his receivers into big hits. He can throw his dudes down the sidelines on back shoulders or leading them down the sidelines. He can do anything. He can throw the ball wherever he needs to, and he's super confident in that. He's also got good pocket presence. He's aware when edge rushers bend the pocket, collapse the pocket, he can step up into it, and he's confident making throws over there too, just down the field when he steps up into the pocket and stuff like that. I know I literally just said that, but you know what I'm saying. He's also very, very good at keeping his eyes down the field even when he's on the move or getting pressured. He's always looking to make a play, and it's sometimes never really with his feet. His intent is never to scramble or to run out of the pocket the second that it breaks down. He's always looking down the field to try and hit his wide receivers or tight ends just on when a play breaks down, he has to escape, or when he's getting pressured, he's always looking downfield and making sure that he can find the open guy. He also has really good footwork in the pocket, and he's good at keeping the ball secure. He holds it tight, 2 hands up near his chest so that he can just zing that thing whenever he needs to. He's also good at moving in the pocket, like it's the same thing as footwork, just not getting his feet tied up underneath him. That's something that we saw with Josh Allen last year, was that he was just super bad in the pocket with his footwork. His mechanics weren't all that good, but Justin Herbert is a very mechanically sound football player, and his last strength, at least the one that, it's not his only strengths, but these are just as prominent ones to me. He knows when and how to use his mobility. He's not necessarily just gonna scramble the second that something breaks down like a Johnny Manziel or like a Lamar Jackson or anything like that. He knows that he needs to stay in the pocket in order to make the best pass that he can, but if he can't, then he's gonna get out and he's gonna try and make a play with his feet, whether that's drawing the defenders to him and so he can throw the ball down the field, or whether that's, running so that he can pick up a first down or something like that. And now just looking at his weaknesses a little bit, I've noticed he had a tendency to overthrow deep routes, and when I say tendency, I mean that he was overthrowing them consistently. I watched about 10 or 15 games, I'd say, and there was like one game, I can't remember what game it was, but he overthrew like the same deep route like 2 or 3 times in a row, and it just wasn't looking good for him in terms of that. But I guess overthrowing them is better than underthrowing them, because if you underthrow them, then they're getting picked. Another thing I noticed is that he misses low on comebacks and curls from time to time. He's just throwing it like at wide receivers' feet, and I guess it's more than time to time. I guess it's I wouldn't say consistently, but it's pretty, I don't know, but I just noticed that a lot of times he was missing low on comebacks and curls and outs and stuff like that, stuff towards the sidelines where either he was rolling out and he had to throw the ball there, or the receiver was coming back. He just seemed to struggle with those routes a little bit. Another thing I'd say is that he holds the ball a little bit too long. That Oregon offensive line does a great job of protecting him when he's in the pocket, and sometimes he takes a little bit too much advantage of that, and he holds the ball way too long, and then he ends up getting sacked or strip sacked or something like that. Another thing that I noticed is that he doesn't throw well to contested receivers, whether that's in a one-on-one situation or the DB is close or it's over the middle in the linebacker safety type area. He doesn't necessarily throw the best to the receivers who are like covered from the backside and he's got to fit it like into their chest. He doesn't necessarily always throw the best balls when he's throwing that way, and he makes odd decision choices that sometimes I wouldn't say that they're bad, but they're just not, they're a little bit confusing, as like, why is that the decision that he made? Like, why would you roll all the way out and then try and force a ball into a window where it's not going to happen? Why wouldn't you roll all the way out, see that there's nothing there, and then just throw the ball away? Or why would you do this or that? It's just, some things to me just didn't necessarily make sense. Like Drew Locke, he had some questionable decisions where, why would you do that? Or that's not the right decision. But with Justin Herbert, it was like what was going through his mind when like that decision was made? That's just something that I noticed. And last but not least, we have my number one quarterback in college football this year, and that is Will Grier, the senior from West Virginia. He's a guy who's had a pretty difficult time in college football. He started out as a redshirt freshman at Florida, led them to 5 wins in a row, 5-0, and they were doing hot. Everybody was like, Florida's back, blah, blah, all this stuff. And then he gets busted by the NCAA for PEDs. He has a super emotional press conference, breaks down. The the NCAA said that if he wanted to stay at Florida, he'd have to sit out a suspension of 2 years. He said, I can't afford to do that. So he transfers to West Virginia, sits out 1 year, played the 2017 season, looked great, has played 5 games of the 2018 season, and looks like he's a top 5 quarterback in the nation. There's guys like Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray that I probably put ahead of him just because of college football stuff, but we're talking about the 2019 draft class, and in that case, he is my number one. Just taking a look at his strengths that I've noticed through watching most of his games, I didn't really take into account the Florida tape. It's mostly just been last year at West Virginia and whatever this season has been at West Virginia. To me, he's really good in the quick game, and to me, that is slants, screens, and curls. He's really good at recognizing what's open off the rip and getting the ball to the first receiver that's open, at least when that play is called and when that's designed to be the play. He also has a really good arm. I don't think that it's elite level arm, like it's obviously an NFL talent arm, but I'd say it's more of middle of the pack. It's not, Justin Herbert or Drew Locke. Those guys have some zip on the freaking football. Will Grier can throw the ball hard, but I don't think he can. It's just not as good as Drew Locke or not Will Grier, Drew Locke or Justin Herbert's arm. He's really, really comfortable in the pocket. He has mobility, but he doesn't look to scramble, kind of like the Justin Herbert thing, but Will Grier just seems unfazed when he's in the pocket. He just he's a lion with his eyes on the cheetah, which is and he's eyes on the cheetah. God, I'm an idiot. Like a lion with his eyes on the prey. He's just super, super focused on getting the ball down the field to his wide receivers for them to make plays, and whatever's going around in the pocket, if he feels something, he's out, but he's super comfortable in the pocket and he's great operating in there. He fits the balls into really tight windows. Really tight, yeah, that's I'm in 4th grade now. He fits the balls into really tight windows, and he's not afraid to make throws that a lot of quarterbacks are afraid to make. He's not afraid to stick a ball in there in double coverage or bracket coverage or anything like that. He knows that he can get the ball there, so he's going to make that throw, and he's great over the middle. We've seen it over the last few years in college football that guys like Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson are great over the middle of the field between the 2 middle hash marks. They've got insane passer ratings, great touchdown numbers, and Will Grier is just the same. He's good at finding slants, posts, digs, stuff like that. He's great over the middle. He also has a sense of touch, and what that means is that he knows when to put touch on the ball, when he needs to take a little bit of heat off of it, when he needs to float it into a spot instead of just zinging it in there. It's a problem that I've noticed that Justin Herbert has. He knows that his arm is really, really good. I probably should have mentioned this when I was talking about him, but he just throws it super, super hard a lot of the time, and he doesn't necessarily float it. Even on deep balls, he'll just throw it as hard as he can, but Will Grier knows when to take a little bit off the football so he can fit it into a certain window, whether that's leading his wide receiver or whether it's floating it or anything like that. He's also very good at reading progressions. It's hard to tell if a quarterback is reading progressions well without super detailed film with a bunch of angles and stuff like that, but I've played football. I understand how it is to read progressions and what it looks like when a quarterback is reading progressions, so I understand that, and I know and I can tell that he's good at reading his progressions. They run a lot of different layered concepts in college football where you'll have receivers, whether it's a levels concept or a sail or a crossing pattern or streaks or something like that. You can tell that Will Grier is trying to find the best route, and he's looking through his progressions. Usually a drag is the first read that you do, or a slant or something like that, because it's quick and you can get the ball out. You can see him follow the receiver there, and then he sees something open over the middle, coming back the other way, and he goes and he finds that route. He's just really good at reading his progressions and finding the right receiver. And just taking a look at some of the weaknesses that I noticed in his game, he doesn't always throw the tight to spiral. Now that isn't a big concern, but that's just the first thing I noticed, that when he threw the ball, it wasn't necessarily the prettiest. It was effective in getting there, but it didn't always look the best. He struggled throwing to the sidelines. It's very similar to Justin Herbert. I don't know what it is with quarterbacks nowadays, but he was just really struggling throwing to the sidelines on out routes, comebacks, even rolling out and throwing to the sidelines. It just seemed like the weakness to me. He doesn't always have the best placement on sideline passes in terms of ball placement and stuff like that. I just noticed a couple times that he was overthrowing his receivers, or he was throwing it back shoulder when it wasn't back shoulder, or he was throwing it front shoulder when it wasn't front shoulder. Just a little bit of stuff like that. I don't know if that's whether he couldn't get it there or whether it was just I need to get the ball out and stuff like that, but he didn't always have the best ball placement throwing to the sidelines. His footwork seems to get away from him at times. It's not like Drew Locke footwork where it's consistently an issue, but it just gets away from him from time to time. He kind of just stands there and he doesn't really move his feet or hit like his lower body when he's trying to find a receiver. It's more of just looking at his upper body. As my phone keeps going off, what the heck is going on? Another thing that I noticed is that he was super lazy with the ball in the pocket. He's like keeping the ball low, holding it with one hand. If a defensive end is coming around and just hits your right arm, then the ball's out. Like there's no way you're gonna hold on to that. So to me, it's just more about I do like a quarterback who holds the ball like Justin Herbert, you know, tight to your chest, tight to your body with two hands so you can get it up quick and in a hurry. Drew Locke kind of struggles with the same thing that Will Grier does, just holding the ball with one hand. It's I guess a popular thing. It's like swaggy now, I guess, but Will Grier and Drew Locke tend to hold the ball like kind of lower, at least this year, the games that I've seen from Drew Locke this year. Last year he was more of a high and tight type of guy. This year's type of low and gunslinger-ish, and that's the same thing with Will Grier. Just holds the ball low, not really cognizant in like holding the ball and being aware that they can get knocked out at any second. But I guess he just thinks he's so good that he doesn't have to do that. And he also doesn't have the quickest release. Justin Herbert and Drew Locke get the ball out quick, fast, and in a hurry. With Will Grier, it's more of like a winding up type of motion, very similar to like Big Ben and Sam Darnold. Those guys take a while to load up the ball and throw it, and Will Grier, that's something that I noticed in his game. It took a little bit longer than the other two quarterbacks and a lot of quarterbacks in this class to get the ball out. Alright guys, so that is going to do it for my top 3 quarterbacks of the 2019 NFL draft class. Hopefully down the road, once the season is over and stuff like that, I can do a video where I break down like the top 10 or 15 quarterbacks in the class. Probably not 15, but probably just the top 10 quarterbacks in the class. That video will be less informative and I won't be diving as deep into like technique and strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that, but hopefully I can make a video like that. I do just like going in depth on prospects and stuff like that and really understanding nuances and stuff like that, especially at the quarterback position. Even though I never really played quarterback, it's just a position that's always interested me. It's the focal point of the media and football teams in general and just football as a sport. And hopefully in the near future I can have more videos out about the running back position and the wide receivers and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me guys. I am TJ and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.